The hope part of our night, illustrated right there. Ryan, thank you again for sharing that. What we'd like to do, if we could, we'd like to ask Sheriff Rohlfing, Commissioner Koerber, and Ann King from Human Support Services to come up and join us. And then Ryan, also, I'm sorry, you went and sat back down, but what I'd like to do is open this up for if there are any questions that you have, or if there's any comments that some of the information shared, that maybe you want to talk to a little bit more, some thoughts came to mind as you got started, Ann hearing, or Vicki, or as you heard some of the other speakers. I'll give you guys an opportunity to maybe add a few comments, and then if there's a hand or two raised in the audience, I'd be happy to go out and we'll check those questions as well. Any of you have anything to add based on Ann? No? Sheriff? You can use that right in front of you.
Some of the other challenges that I didn't touch on, but I want to point out, unfortunately, a lot of the issues that we're going to deal with in law enforcement and in the prosecution side, these things are going to be decided in our courts, multiple levels in the court system. It's going to take years. It's going to cost the state hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm sure that's not factored into the income. But there's going to be a lot of court cases that judges are going to be deciding on. We have no idea what is going to happen to our canine. I don't remember how many canines there is in the state of Illinois. I believe it was around 600. They're telling us, don't worry, they can be imprinted on marijuana. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. There's going to be court cases on that. The dog's going to alert to a car. We're going to find a gram of marijuana and a kilo of cocaine. Well, what's the first thing the defense is going to talk about? So this is a long road for us. And like I said, I didn't mean to be completely doom and gloom on the beginning of the presentation, but it's going to take a long time. The state of Colorado has been dealing with their experiment for 6 years. I don't know of any cases that how far they've made it up in the court system there. I'm sure there's several cases in the appellate at least. But we're going to deal with it the best that we can.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to just say one additional piece. I think Ryan did an excellent job of talking about that theme of hope at the end, and I think that in the video I kind of said everything that I really wanted to say about the hope and the resources and support that Human Support Services provides. But there is one new piece that we have, and I'd like you to stop by our table on the way out, or if you have to leave before this panel is done, please stop by our table and pick up this flyer. We're starting a new support group called Pillars. And the first date is October the 16th, and really it's a support group for anyone who loves someone with an addiction. So maybe some of you have heard of Al-Anon and that model for if you have a loved one who is struggling, and this can be someone who is currently receiving treatment services from us or someone else, or if you're just struggling with that right now and you don't know what to do. Come to this group and receive that support service. So grab the flyer. The first date is October the 16th, and the name of the group is Pillars of Monroe County.
Are there any questions that anyone has they would like to ask? I'm sorry, keep your hand raised. The light's kind of bright. Perfect.
Thank you. What is the process for the city to opt, or the county to opt out of having the brick and mortar businesses? Is that something the aldermen will vote on? Are there petitions that we can do in town? Or just what is the process for the citizens?
The opting out is available for municipalities as well as counties. A public forum should be held. Again, I did announce that Waterloo's is October 15th. The Committee of the Whole for Columbia is meeting Monday night. It is up to your leaders. So that's why I'm suggesting you get a hold of your aldermen, your mayors. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go for opting out in Monroe County. But again, I'm one of two of 3. So you would need to contact Bob Elmore as well as Commissioner Ron Schulteis.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
Hi, this is a question for the sheriff. Maybe you said something about it, but I didn't know how you're gonna guys test since it's legal if there's a bad car accident, or how to tell they're on it that moment instead of seeing that they were high a week ago or whatever.
Sure. There still is, there is field sobriety testing. I believe, Chief with Columbia, do you guys have an expert in that? We were talking about both sending personnel to be experts in that. I don't believe we have got that done yet, but we can test for nanograms in the system. There's actually a case on, and it was a fatality case that we're dealing with right now on Macetown Road. I believe that was 2 years ago. I don't know where that case, 3 years ago maybe. But there is testing that we can do. Again, that's going to be something that's going to be fought and battled in court. I mean, one of the first defenses is going to be, hey, it's legal. But there is testing for that already in process. There's other things that they're looking at that they can, but it's not in place yet. The state hasn't agreed that you can use those testing processes. So you can test the blood, and it'll tell you how many nanograms is in the system.
Two quick things. Commissioner Koerber, I caught when the city public hearings are going to be. Is there going to be a public hearing or forum before the county board makes their decision on opting out?
Our next meeting is October 6th, and I do plan to bring that up between now and guess by the end of December of when we can hold a public forum also.
Oh, okay, so you won't make your vote that day. You'll decide at that point when to have a public forum.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And the other part is, if the county and the municipalities or one of the above were to opt out, that is just for the dispensaries, correct?
Dispensary as well as retail.
Okay, so if people were to, if the county, city opted out, people could go, well, actually, if the county opted out, but the city didn't,
That's correct.
you could have a dispensary in Waterloo, even though Waterloo is in the county.
That's correct. What the county would be
Interesting.
controlled of is the unincorporated areas, say like by Chose Plastics there, that's unincorporated.
Gotcha.
Municipalities have jurisdiction over their own propers.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And so let's just hypothetically say they all opt out. Someone could still potentially go to St. Clair County, make a purchase at a dispensary there. They could then still travel back to the county carrying that product.
Absolutely. We cannot prohibit the use, and as long as the criteria of it's in a sealed, open, clear container, out of the reach of the driver and passenger, it can be transported. Correct.
Is it my turn? So kind of stemming off what Ryan said, that like when you came out of prison and removing yourself, changing your environment, the people that you're around. So what kind of options are going to be available for drug addicts that are coming out of rehab? Or because a lot of times drug addicts come out of rehab and they just go right back to, because they don't have anywhere else to go. And so like a halfway house, and some drugs are harder to come off of, and to change you need more clean time to get that clarity. So like, is there something in line for that maybe, like other than just counseling and rehab, because a lot of rehabs are like 30, 45 days, 60 days sometimes, and that's about it. There's not a lot of halfway houses that are focused on drug addicts, so.
Correct, right. And there aren't any halfway houses in Monroe County, so I think Ryan was really fortunate in that he had been living outside of the county and then had family to come back to in this county that was away from, that particular influence. So that's a difficult one. So if you don't have any other options for going away from where that particular peer group is that keeps you connected in that bad circle, then you really have to work very hard at setting up boundaries, setting up positive supports, like a group like a Celebrate Recovery group where you've got positive supports around you, and then check-ins with that positive group where you're living, if you're staying in the same community, and multiple meetings and things like that, and a counselor that you're checking in with, a sponsor that you're checking in with, like lots of checks and balances if you're staying in the same community, if you don't have any options to go outside of that community.
Right. Well, my question was that because, okay, so you had said that there's going to be more resources available in Monroe County. So what kind of more resources are going to be available for drug addicts?
Are you talking about like what Commissioner Koerber was talking about?
Yeah, pretty much.
So some of the funds that she was talking about that would come through the Department of Human Services for additional dollars for like drug treatment, drug prevention, that sort of thing. The way that works is they will put those dollars out there in the form of grant applications for agencies like ours, and then we would be eligible to apply for certain grant applications, and it just depends. So that is all unknown at this point in time. You know, some of those things get directed to Southern Illinois, some of those things get directed to Chicago where the need is greater, and so at this point in time I don't know even what those would look like. You know, we would just have to see when all that starts trickling down if we would be eligible.
I will add that since we were at the seminar August 1st, our county clerk, John McLean, was just in Springfield, and he came back with more information on House Bill 1438. There's going to be what they call bill trailers. So what that means is as this document, as the law moves forward, it is subject to change. Now, my question is, once it's signed into law, it's law. However, in this case, the information that I asked in Springfield was, how did we come about from start to finish House Bill 1438? And they said it took 2.5 years. Normally, a bill will take 7. So when we're looking at 2.5 years, there's going to be some mistakes maybe, or things that they recognize that is faulty and needs to be fixed. So in October when they meet the General Assembly, I expect that House Bill 1438 is going to have some different looks to it by the time we get to January 1st, 2020.
Commissioner Koerber, you listed a bunch of responsibilities that are going to be associated with this from various departments. The Department of Health is going to have to label you listed all that. Who's paying for that?
Well, let's see. Have you ever heard of unfunded mandates?
That's what I mean. So all of that, you listed, I don't know, like 12 different departments that are now going to have added responsibility, including the Illinois State Police, which, what did you say, they have to go back and expunge 30,000?
And I'll hand this over to Sheriff Rohlfing, because anything for arrests that were 30 grams and under in marijuana that were nonviolent and didn't involve underage sales will have to be expunged. That is part of this law.
Right.
2025.
So I'm just wondering, so like you listed all of that, someone's got to pay for that. The money's not coming in yet, so where's that money coming
Sheriff?
from is what I just was trying to figure out.
Well, as for the expungement part, we have 2 administrative assistants full-time in the county jail, and then also 1 part-time. At least one of them is going to be working exclusively on this, because there is, as you know, there's a lot of marijuana arrests that we've had, not only us, but the other municipalities. It is the most prevalent drug that we've seen and continues to be seen, but we're going to have personnel dedicated to those expungements. And I'll let Ryan talk about there's actually other levels of enforcement where they were arrested where they actually have to get a pardon too.
Yeah, I think the pardon is another automatic type deal where it's just if you didn't get a conviction, it's automatically expunged. But if you got a conviction, then the governor will grant a pardon, and it's automatically expunged. So it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a whole lot of work for the circuit clerk's office in every county in the state. So, yeah, I don't know how, but it's the taxpayers, I guess.
My name's Dennis Trask. I had a little information I just wanted to share. I coordinate the Southern Illinois Substance Abuse Alliance Coalition, the sister coalition that was mentioned a little bit earlier, that we work in Randolph County and Washington counties. On the opt-out, I just want to let folks know what we're up to in that regard. We developed a position paper, and basically what we did, we took information that the advocates against the marijuana legislation were utilizing, and we adapted it a little bit to our situation. And so that's got some interesting information in it. It's out there on the information table that we have outside. We have some estimates of the increased costs to the states versus the projected revenue. We have 3 different sources that estimate, one for national, one for Illinois, and one for Colorado. And the estimates range from 10 to 1, 10 more dollars per every dollar of revenue, to about $5 of cost versus every $4 of revenue. Things that were mentioned earlier are taken into consideration to come up with these estimates. So now what's really happening right now, the Randolph County commissioners have discussed this twice, and so they're considering what to do. One of the things in regards to the trailer bill, they're considering opting out as one option, but they're going to wait until the trailers are done. So their approach is that. Earlier today, the city of Chester had an open meeting. One of their committees was discussing this. It was really interesting. As is often the case, the pro case was put out there of revenue. If we don't do it, somebody else is going to be doing it, so we're going to be losing that revenue. So there was that. And then there was also the issue of, well, gee, the state has done this. What can we do? It's just a tidal wave. It's coming at us. So it was about an hour meeting. The conversation was maybe about 5 minutes on those 2 items. The rest of the time, believe me, no one there was very interested in approving marijuana. They're really seriously looking at opting out. And opting out, I just want to make this really clear. You can opt out from retail sales. You can also prohibit growers from growing commercially. So you can prohibit one or the other or both. So that's what's being considered. We have a lot of different towns to deal with, and we have 2 counties. We had 11 people in our coalition volunteer a month ago to take our position paper and go to these different meetings and talk to people. So in a sense it's negative, but in another sense, for me as a person who I get paid fortunately to work on this stuff, is really exciting to see people step up and get interested and focused on, hey, let's do something about this issue.
I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I'll be right there. Wanted to add one thing. Dennis mentioned their coalition has paid representation. When you're looking at the Monroe, and that's not bad, that they've got a grant that helps fund what they do. When you take a look at what the Monroe County Coalition for Drug-Free Communities is doing, everything that we do is volunteer or it's self-funded. We're going out and getting it from donors, from whoever, to help make sure that when we run a homecoming safety ad to discourage parents from doing a social hosting, that's coming from funds that we generated. When we're doing something about awareness at prom, it's the same type of thing, these forums. So I'm not trying to say anything against being a funded, because we'd love to have a grant to help us do what we do, but I want you to know that in Monroe County, that's the one of the strong points that our coalition has.
Sheriff Rohlfing, what are we doing, or are we doing anything to educate our kids, our youth? You had talked about the edibles being produced specifically to target them. I also know about the pods that go in these vaping things they contain marijuana. You know, what does that look like? I mean, for that stuff being brought in, where obviously it's to distribute it. And what does that look like for the kids who are caught with it? Outside of, obviously, we want to educate our children on the high levels of THC and things like that. So on multiple levels of this, how are our kids, our youth, being educated on the addiction part of it, the legalities of them having it, and people bringing it in clearly with the intent to distribute it to them?
Well, the day of just the simple DARE program, unfortunately, is not enough anymore. Columbia has put a very good program together, which we partnered with them, and we've been to a number of different classes, health classes, in high schools all across the county. Education is the key. Waterloo was a part of that too. You have to talk to these kids multiple times. Not only us, but also as parents. Like I said earlier, a lot of times people don't realize, and they don't think about things. They don't think about the important things, like to talk about drugs to the kids, until all of a sudden it's affecting you. And now what do? Start early, because kids nowadays are way more ahead than they were when I was a kid. They all have iPads, minis, every other little thing that you can, it's at their fingertips. Watch what they do on social media. Check out our Facebook page. We released a Facebook post on all of the different apps to watch for different people trying to take advantage of them, to include to sell narcotics and edibles. As for if someone were to get caught with it, if they're a juvenile, they will go through the juvenile justice system, which quite frankly is more geared towards protecting them than justice. But I understand part of that. But education is the key, though. Everyone's going to have to talk to their kids way more now than ever before. Because kind of like I've talked earlier, this desensitization of drug use. There's professionals out there, politicians, medical professionals, talking about how great this is going to be, and I have mixed feelings on the medical use. If it can keep people from being addicted to opiates, I would be supportive of that, but there's not a whole lot of that research out there yet. But as for just the young, talking to our youth, it's going to take more now than ever before, and it's going to fall on all of us. We're doing our part. We're getting into schools as much as we can, working with human support. They do these seminars at least twice a year. And quite frankly, it's you would think there'd be 300 people in here. It's normally 75. It hasn't affected too many people in the county yet, but it could happen any day. It could. And you just got to be prepared for it as a family.
One of the things that the coalition did do in May, we had a forum, and it was called Hidden in Plain Sight. And maybe we look at bringing that back at some point, but that was brought in, and it was basically a room that was set up to be like a teenager's room. And those who put this on, they travel around. The mother had lost a son. So she was educating other families, other parents. It was only for adults who could come in. Basically what that Hidden in Plain Sight was every place where there was an opportunity to hide marijuana, drugs, alcohol, to cover things up, key signs, they went through that and talked about it. So we're trying to do those things and keep them out there, and seeing all of you here has been heartwarming, to say the least, and continuing to spread the word. We've got time for one more question, and then what we'll do when we finish the next question, maybe 2 questions, because you're young and we want to get your perspective. I'll be right back. What we'll do is we'll have time for everybody to meet and talk in the lobby as well.
Yeah, can't we get together and petition our school board and get an 8 hours, I mean not 8 hours a day, an hour a day for a whole semester to just teach our children about drugs? Have Ryan go in there and talk to them. Have Mr. Rohlfing go in there and talk to them. Tell them where they're going. Show them. Tell them what's going to happen to them. Have the judge go in there and say, look, this is what you're getting for this. Have the coroner go in there and tell them, you're going to be in that box. You know, it happens. These kids are going to get so fired up with this marijuana that it led me to more drugs. There's always something better out there. There's always something to make you feel better. People are depressed. Part of being a teenager, whatever. But can't we petition the school board to get some kind of credit for it? I mean, don't just make them go there for nothing. Let them get something out of it. But teach them about it and show them the life they're gonna have. I was drug addict 30 years. Nobody taught me anything. It's no road that these kids should, first of all, just be allowed to go get your pot, get your edibles, and go do it and feel good for the moment, but you're just going to keep chasing that. And I just think we should be able to talk to our school board and get something going there maybe.
I'd like just to add to that, sir, and I totally agree with you. I think it should be interjected into the curriculum in health department classes. I do know that Columbia Health did have a full segment on drug abuse and actually brought in addicts and kind of like the scared straight.
Yeah.
As coroner, I did get into Jabot High School, and we did forums for teachers as well as whole assemblies a few years back. Again, in real life, addicts talking about how they became addicted, and I will say, you know, it was alcohol, then on to marijuana. So anybody that you talk to an addict and they in the state legislature think this is the answer to all of our revenue woes, it is a gateway drug.
Yes,
And that is the scary part of what we're dealing with. But I do agree with you.
Thank you.
So I'm a sophomore in the Waterloo High School, and what we have been given was in health class we learned about drugs and what all happened, but like we watched a video and like there were like addicts in there from what they've all gone through, but like kids don't pay attention in class. They fall asleep during videos when lights are off. We just don't pay attention. I paid attention, but like some other people didn't. And like that's just not giving us enough. Not very many kids learn stuff from it. They weren't taught anything because they just didn't pay attention. I think we had one assembly last year about it, about driving under the influence and whatnot. Kids don't pay attention during assemblies either. I think we need more like something to actually like give us the straight details and like face to face and not just in large amount of groups or in classrooms where we don't pay attention. Like we had 2 people in health class last year come in for domestic violence and for driving under the influence with alcohol. I feel like we should get in people who have gone through drug addictions and stuff like that, and what they've actually gone through, and people who have just like actually gone through bad stuff, and like driving under the influence high, and them injuring other people and whatnot.
Did you, by any chance, were you in your seat when we had the video?
Yes.
Okay. Did you connect with Miss Warnicki, who was the young lady that was hit in the motor vehicle crash?
Yes.
Did that connect with you?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit? But you would like to see somebody like that come into class and actually talk about it firsthand?
Yes.
One-on-one? Okay.
I think what she's trying to say is kind of more like the detail, the hell that they lived through going through the addiction. The video was great. It was kind of high level. So I think that's kind of what she's getting at, like more detail of what kind of hell addicts go through. I think that's kind of where she was going with that.
You want the raw details in a small setting.
Thank you, too, for the students who are absolutely.
My name's Marilyn Faust. I'm the ministry leader here at Celebrate Recovery. And just to add to what Tim and she said, that face-to-face testimony, as opposed to watching it on a video, is much more impactful. We have testimony that are played by a video every other Tuesday in Celebrate Recovery. One Tuesday we have a lesson night, and the next Tuesday we have a testimony. And we aren't always blessed to be able to have a live testimony because people have to travel to come here. So we watch them by video. But I can tell you that when we have live testimonies, there is a greater impact because that person is right there in front of you. They are attainable to you. And I think that that's kind of what she was saying was to have that live testimony in front of that person there, it makes them more real. There's a bigger awareness, and it also allows that person, that young person, whoever that is, to go up and ask them a question. When you have warm blood in front of you, there is a connection that you cannot get through a video. You can certainly empathize with them, but like she said, these kids, my daughter was up till 2 o'clock in the morning last night doing homework. I had to send her to bed just because I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and noticed that she was still awake doing homework. Okay, they're tired. She goes into a classroom and somebody flips the lights off to show her a video, she's gonna be out. Okay, clearly I would have been too. But I totally agree with that. If there is any way that we could, as a community, come up with more of that to come into the classroom, I think it would be extremely effective.
Is everybody okay? We've got 2 hands for a few more minutes. Okay. We're going to try to keep this short. Can I take this one real quick, Dennis? By the way, she wins for cutest participant tonight.
First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for taking your time and giving us all this great, horrible information. Secondly, I'd like to respond to a couple of things because I think what we get caught up in when we do this is all the adults like to give us the logic and the facts. And as a recovering drug addict and somebody that works with teenagers and young adults all day long and have for 25 plus years, I can tell you that the facts don't necessarily matter to a teenager as much as a heart. And everything that I keep hearing about is tonight, especially with the young people, if you go at them with just, hey, drugs are bad and drugs are going to kill you and drugs are going to do this, they're gonna snooze. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher goes on and starts talking. Wah, 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 wah. If you talk to a teenager, first of all, in today's society with the social disconnect that happens with, Facebook and Instagram and Google and all of that, you miss that whole actual conversation and the real connection. And I think that's a big part of where the drug problem in this society starts from. So when young people are saying, I just want you to talk, I want to have a real experience. I want to hear from the heart. You know, I could tell you, most teenagers can tell you more about drugs than the people on that stand. Because Google tells us everything we need to know. Our friends tell us everything we need to know. But what most teenagers can't tell you about is, where do I find hope? How do I deal with that low self-worth? Why did nobody tell me that when you smoke weed, it actually feels good? Why did nobody tell me that? You know, if you're honest with them and you have a real conversation, you go, these are the risks that you're taking, then you're going to have a way better chance of actually educating them. I'm not a big fan of scare tactics. They didn't work with me. You know, as a teenager, I walked up and everybody said all these horrible things are going to happen. And the first time I did drugs, it was wonderful. It felt great. That's why I kept doing it. And if somebody would have told me that and been honest with me about it, I might have actually listened. You know, I think the video was awesome. As a teenager, I wouldn't have related to that as an educational tool. I would relate to somebody coming to me and going, you know what, this is what I did and this is what happened. Because it's real and it's from the heart. So yeah, all the facts that you're presenting, they're awesome. But if you really want to educate teenagers, you have to educate them from the heart, because that's what they're going to listen to. So, thanks.
And we'll have one final comment, and I think we'll be back and done.
Hoyleton Youth and Family Services can provide, at no cost, research-based curriculum in the schools in this county. They have a table out there. Is there a staff person here from Hoyleton? Tell them what you're doing. It works.
I am actually in Dupo and Cahokia, and I teach the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And we start young. After DARE, DARE's great, but it's that next step. The 6th graders get 16 sessions. You don't start by scaring them. It's not going to work, like they were saying. You've got to give these kids good self-image. You've got to build from the bottom and build them up. And then say, okay, sorry, I didn't know you were going to put me on the place. I'm very passionate about this. I'm not an addict. I've never been an addict. But I've lived with addicts. My mother died when I was 10 years old in Monroe County, Illinois, in 1977, of smoking cigarettes. So this is something I'm very passionate about, and we do offer it. We have a grant, and I can come into schools and do this for free. So.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time to come out tonight. Thank you for all who spoke. Please keep an eye out on our Facebook page. We are trying so many avenues to reach so many different people. Again, the 15th of October, Waterloo, City Council, the 6th, County Commissioners, the date for Columbia.
This coming Monday,
September 30th, this coming Monday. So if there's something you would like to do, to reach out to the folks that represent you. That's what they are there to do. Please make your voice known. Thank you again for all coming out. I encourage you to stop by and have a conversation with any of the folks that are presenting tonight. Thank you very much.